the rest of us are here. Anyway,
All good.
the attorneys, is there anything we need to get in order to set the agenda, please? Attorneys, did you wake up? Are we here?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Items for today's consideration are those in the final printed agenda and the changes memo, which included the addition of item 3F. There are no other additions, withdrawals, or other changes requested at this time. Before setting the agenda, since there's no public hearing items, a reasonable opportunity to be heard on all non-public hearing items is appropriate at this time.
I know, but I can still set the agenda, no?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a motion to set the agenda, then we'll ask.
Move it.
There's been a motion, set the agenda, second by myself. Does anybody wish to be recorded? No. Thank you. And this, since it has nothing to do with reasonable opportunity to speak, I have the special presentations. All of you who have the agenda, please join me in congratulating the following members of our county family. Tracy L. Dykes from the Department of Corrections, 30 years. Sheila Freeman, Corrections, 30 years. Ricky L. Hemingway, Corrections, 30 years. Theodora L. Sainz, Corrections, 30 years. And Orlando B. Santana, Corrections, 30 years. If we can just, unfortunately, this is the only way we can do it. But hopefully they're looking and listening and realizing that we do appreciate it. Director, are you on by any chance? Director? Okay. Well, thank you all for joining me, congratulating all of these dedicated corrections employees. And my question was, we're losing a lot of experience, and hopefully that I'm sure we're having to go ahead and replace them. So with that, to the clerk or whoever's running this part of it, are there any speakers on the reasonable opportunity to speak? That session is now open. Do we have anybody?
Chairman Martinez, we have no speakers.
Having no speakers, that's always a good start to the day.
Mr. Chair, if you allow me, I would like to move all the items except 2A, out of respect for Commissioner Higgins who's here.
Yes, and with that, the reasonable opportunity to speak is closed. There's a motion to move all the items except for 2A. I will be happy to second it. Any discussion on any of the items?
Mr. Chairman, on 2D?
Yes, sir.
It could,
yes, sir.
2D also?
2D?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Except for 2A and 2D. Any further discussions? And yes, sir. Go ahead, Commissioner Diaz.
No, I'm good. That was it.
Oh, no, because you got your finger up.
It was loaded,
Okay. Does anybody wish to be recorded? No on all items except 2A and 2D. Hearing none, all those items pass. 2D, Commissioner Diaz, because it'll be quicker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it is quick. For many years, as you all know, we've been working, Commissioner Moss and myself, and making sure we have a dual-use airport at the Homestead Air Force Base. And it's something that I worked hard along with him to make sure it's a reality. And as we get close to that reality, I wanted to make sure this item I'm put in as co-prime sponsor along with Commissioner Moss. And that's to the attorneys so they can move forward on that with the acceptance of Commissioner Moss, obviously. So with that, I'll move the item, Mr. Chairman.
Perfect. To the attorneys, if you could please communicate that Commissioner Moss, and hopefully he will accept. He's always been a gentleman, so I don't see there's an issue with that. Anyways, with that, there's been a motion, there's been a second. Does anybody wish to be recorded? No? All right, item 2D passes on. Item 2A, Commissioner Sosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and believe me, and and trying to help families to report and the creation of a driver's license, a special task force. But my biggest concern is to allocate $250,000 from our budget for consulting fees for something that in a moment that we are living the life that is very hard for residents that are going to pay taxes. And this is something that I don't have any problems if it's voluntary and we don't taxpayers' dollars for this. The overwhelming majority of the driver license suspensions are unrelated to the driver's ability or skills to continue driving. That most driver's suspensions are due to non-payment of court-related fees, service charge, fines, and associated court costs. This falls more on the courts that maybe they can create the ability, uniting forces, and not for Miami-Dade County to enter into something like this. The BCC does not make any direct appointments to the task force, and then paying a consultant to do something that I'm pretty sure that the state attorney's office, the public defender's office can come up with many suggestions because they are the experts. So I cannot support at this moment in time $250,000 from our budget that is already really tight. And this year is easier. Next year is going to be harder to do something like this. I think that maybe on a voluntary basis, you have experts over there that can help with this idea. That is a suggestion.
Yes. Thank you. And if I may, I've been advised that Commissioner Higgins may be on the line. While she's not a member of the committee, I would like to see if we can give her the opportunity to at least present her item. Just so you know, Commissioner Sosa, I totally agree with you on the $250,000, and I wouldn't be supporting it because of that. But I would like to hear from Commissioner Higgins, if you all don't mind. Commissioner Higgins, are you on?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair. Good morning.
Oh, good morning, ma'am. There you are.
Yeah. I mean, I still have my hot pink background just because I like it.
There you go.
Yeah, so just to introduce this item a little bit, this was something through the chairwoman's Community Disparity Subcommittee that she had asked me to look at issues that sometimes affected low-income residents and held them back a little bit more. And so we did a deep dive into this in the committee, and it's a really interesting topic, right? As you all on this committee are well aware of, we need people to be paying fines and fees so that the clerk can continue to work in an able way. But at the end of the day, when we look at what's happening here in our own county, we have over 600,000 residents driving without or not driving. They have their license suspended. That's a huge percentage of our drivers. There's 1.3 million open cases in the county and over $320 million in uncollected fees. So it is really interesting. Part of the reason I was recommending that we add, and by the way, that $250,000 is for the administration to negotiate, nothing more than that, right? And so it could end up being lower. But this group has been doing research on this topic in the state and in the county and around the country for over 2 years. And it's really fascinating. And I think that's why we got the collective support from the state attorney's office, the chief judge's office, obviously Judge Leifman, public defender, the Association of Chiefs, is to have someone available to be able to present solutions that we may not have implemented here. It's been a while since we've looked at how do we basically make it easier, right? Simplify our payment processes. We need people to pay, but because we need the revenue, but we also don't want them to have their licenses suspended, right? That keeps them from picking their kids up from work. That keeps them from going to work, picking kids up from school. And obviously, if it's a driving related offense, right? If you're a crappy driver, that's not part of this project, right? But almost 80% of the folks that are having their licenses are suspended as fines and fees. And so our committee did, with the help of this group, did a lot of analysis. as to what other parts of the country are doing to make sure it's easier to pay, and there's new technology available. There are examples where they've made the process simpler and revenue has increased. And so there's a lot to be looked at, and I do think having this person on call or this company on call to help advise the committee is a good idea. So that it's not just us within ourselves thinking of these ideas. There's some and solutions. There's actually an outside expert on this, but I also do understand that we are going to have to negotiate that down. And I put the upper limit because that's the upper limit of the mayor's authority. And I would expect that they would, as they always do a good job making sure that we get some outside expertise and an outside point of view, right? It's always important to have an outside point of view when you're looking at how do you improve things, but do that in a way that is indeed cost effective for the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. It's always good to see the bubbly face and your excitement still there. I believe I had Commissioner Cava, and then I have Commissioner Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Higgins. I had really the great pleasure to hear the presentation at the subcommittee and was very impressed that it is very important that we move forward to do something to resolve this issue. And Commissioner Higgins spoke to a good number of the reasons. For me to underscore that a good percentage of people on the road are actually driving with suspended licenses. So let's just say this is a real public safety issue we need to resolve. And of course, the point is to collect these fines and fees. So, whatever money we invest is to bring back, a great return on investment. So I just want to underscore that as well. As an example, one of the reasons that people end up with suspended licenses that really impressed me was that there's no provision for partial payment, like payments over time. So that obviously makes it very, very difficult for people to pay what ends up being a large amount. Often they don't even know that the thing is accruing interest and so on. So I would just like to move this item as a member of the committee and hope that there would be a second. But I certainly am in support of it. And I think that the research that was done, the information that was provided was research, and it was very impressive. And we need to kind of go forward with a calibrated way of resolving this for our public safety and also to bring in the fees and fines that we are due.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Appreciate your comments. Commissioner Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would tell you that I know, Commissioner Higgins, you've been working on this quite a while. And it's important that in today's world, and Chair will tell you, it's a privilege to have a driver's license. It's not a must, or it's not something that is an automatic. You have to earn and maintain the right to have that driver's license. Due to that, I want to ask Deputy Mayor Kemp, do we have enough funding within the system itself that we could help Commissioner Higgins do what she's trying to do? Because I'm supportive of what she's trying to do, especially after the day chiefs and everybody in this committee. The makeup of it is going to be extremely good for what I believe is our county. But do we have some funding that could help alleviate? Because I understand what Commissioner Sosa and our sheriff is talking about, the $250,000 right now. But at the same time, I think this is extremely important, something that I would like to see put in place. Is there any help that we could get from the administration? And I see Jennifer light up. It's Moon came out. So whoever of the two could answer that question for me, I would like that to please be answered.
Hi. Commissioner Higgins is making an allocation from the $1 million reserve that was created in the current year budget for the Community Disparity Subcommittee. In our budget projections, we assumed that $1 million would be spent as we were putting the budget together. So the funding is available and doesn't impact next year's budget. Obviously, if it's not spent, it's available for other things, but it wouldn't impact the fiscal year 2021 budget.
Well, that was a concern of Commissioner Sosa and actually mine and the chairman. But if it doesn't affect the budget, I will be happy to second it and moving it forward, because I think this is something that really we need to look at and deal with in our community, especially with so much the day chiefs and everybody coming in together. It's a nice board to really get to the bottom of this and see how we can make things safer for our people. There's another thing that's going on and happening is a lot of people that are from out of the country that are in our country that are driving around without licenses, and they've been here quite a while. And it's happening with for hire vehicles and so on. I've been finding out some things. I got some legislation that I'm putting forth, and this kind of falls within that gap. So it helps me in this legislation moving forward, that something like this is in place. And Mr. Chairman, I know you were in law enforcement for a long time. You understand exactly where I'm looking at this. This is a very difficult situation moving in the future. A lot of people are depending on these type of rides, let's say, or for hire rides, and having people that might not be stellar doing this or going under somebody else's license is part of something that I think that will fall within this committee to be really analyzed. So that's why I'm extremely supportive of this item. So I'll second the item, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Before I recognize Commissioner Sosa, has her hand up. Commissioner Hayman? ITD has advised me that she's trying to get on. Okay. Well, if she does, I guess ITD will unmute her, do whatever it is they have to do. Commissioner Sosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Joe?
Oh, wait.
Joe?
She's on. Hold on.
Hey.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I had horrible IT. I'm at the doctor's. I had horrible IT. I just want to put on the record to Commissioner Higgins and my colleagues on the committee, I love the idea. But I sit on the Dade Miami Criminal Justice Council, the subcommittee on public safety. One's chaired by Danny Jr., the other one's chaired by Judge Newsom Safety. We have been working on this with Judge Leifman on criminal traffic, Judge Robin Faber on the criminal court, and also Carlos Martinez from the Public Defender's Office. And there's a whole subcommittee. So without spending the $250,000, it's been in the works. It was set to go in March, but the COVID stopped everything. I would really encourage you, because it is such a good idea, not to do duplicity, but if Commissioner Higgins can get with Judge Faber and Judge Leifman, see what has been done with them, see the obstacle with FDLE on expunging records that we've had with the Public Defender's Office, and what we need to change by law for urging of the legislature, because most of it's dictated, unfortunately, by the state, as well as the cost on moving violations. We've changed the parking ones for payment plans and stuff. The rest is dictated by the state. If that could be done first before you start saying, okay, there is some money available and we could use it, we wouldn't have to necessarily spend it in areas that are already being addressed. So I would respectfully ask Commissioner Higgins and my colleagues on this committee to defer it. Let her take the time to get with the judges and the people who've worked on the Dade Miami Criminal Justice Council on this issue, and then come back with a revision, because some of it is already in the works and being done. We just couldn't implement it.
Is that a motion to defer, Commissioner Hayman?
Yes, it is, but I wanted to explain why, because it is a great program idea.
All right. I'll tell you what, I will second your motion to defer, because I'm afraid this may not pass for the reasons of the no bid consulting service. But yet at the same time, it is a good idea. There's a couple of questions of jurisdictions, and I'm glad you brought up the issue about duplicity. So it is being and has been studied already by others, and it is being right now.
Yes, and partially implemented. That's why we've done several expunged, but we ran into a problem at the state level with FDLE and the state legislative order on what you can and can't do. So some of it needs to be done with legislation. The rest is procedural, and we're working on it administratively with Carlos Martinez and the two judges.
See, that's why the Sunshine Law prevents us from doing things that are good many times, because if you could have spoken this with Commissioner Higgins, these things might have been resolved and we might be moving further along.
Yes.
On the motion to defer, as it takes precedence, there is a motion, there is a second. Discussion on the motion to defer only. Commissioner Sosa, Commissioner Cava.
Listening to everything, I don't want to take away from Commissioner Higgins the idea that she's bringing up something that is good. Part of this is controlled by the Florida law. It doesn't have anything to do with us. But I would like to make sure that she holds the, I don't have any problems in deferring the item if she holds the item and she has the opportunity to amend it and working with the group that they say, because it was her idea. It was her, she didn't know that existed before. So she can hold the item and bring it back with any differences, so she can be the champion in something and come back more educated with what they have done and what can be done. And that way we don't have to spend the money on something that is conducted with experts, and she can expand at that time to bring it back.
Totally agree. I totally agree, Commissioner Sosa.
Thank you. That's the only reason that I will support the deferral. But for as long as she holds the ability to come back with the changes and the inclusion of what have already happened, so we are not doing double jeopardy on doing something that maybe she can take it from there and continue doing. So that's why I will support it for as long as she holds the ability to come back to us with a unified item to help.
Perfect. And that'll give the opportunity for Commissioner Hayman and Commissioner Higgins to sit down and have the Sunshine meeting and come back with one idea that is great, because as a police officer, you know, the majority of the people who had it was for financial responsibility. That means they didn't pay their fines or they didn't have insurance. But I also saw it from the other side, the law-abiding citizens that did have insurance and had anything. Your insurance goes up when people are driving without a license, and it's not fair to you because of the for no fault that you have to have it. So, you know, while you do want to make it easier for people who have maybe run into financial issues, that is issues that you have to deal with the clerk, with the state, and the allowance of saying, okay, we will allow you to do these things. But sometimes people get their license suspended and they're not even notified. They have no idea that their license has been suspended. Thank God this law was changed a long time ago, because before, if you were driving the suspended license, that could have been an automatic arrest. Now you have to have knowledge of it. You have to know that your license is suspended. And only a very stupid person, when he's asked by the officer, do you know your license is suspended? He'll probably say yes. I mean, very honest. Sally, is that you? Sally?
I'm outside. I'm still here. Yes.
Okay, but your
He's just
background.
backing up, that's all.
So, based on that fact, you got to look at both sides. I'm going to recognize Commissioner Cava and then Commissioner Higgins on the deferral, please, on the deferral. Thank you. Commissioner Kava.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, I definitely want to hear from Commissioner Higgins on this matter, but I do just want to say that if we were not in the budget cycle, we would have the liberty of time. But right now, because this is a budgetary item and we're voting on the budget very soon, really we cannot afford a deferral. We have to, in my opinion, allow this to be resolved between now and the next BCC meeting so that we don't miss this opportunity. So of course, the fact that Commissioner Hayman has been working on this item with the Criminal Justice Council is great. I wish there were a better way for us all to be informed of all the great things that Commissioner Hayman works on in that forum, because I don't think we get necessarily always updated on those initiatives. But regardless, I would suggest that the two of them meet in the sunshine, that we allow this to go forward so we do not miss out on the budgetary opportunity if it's necessary. And for that reason, I would not be supporting a deferral, but I would like to hear from Commissioner Higgins to better understand her perspective. Thank you, Mr.
Remember,
Chair.
there's two things we're doing here. One is a no-bid consultant contract, and the other one's the establishment of a task force. I don't think anybody is against the establishment of a task force. I think those of us who are not supportive of the $250,000 is a total different thing, especially if the thing is being done. At least from my point of view and from what I heard from Commissioner Sosa and Hayman. Commissioner Diaz, since you're on the committee, sir, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought you were going to let Higgins speak first.
Yeah, let's not forget that the next commission meeting is after the budget anyways.
That's actually what I was going to say, Mr. Chairman.
It doesn't really have a bearing on it.
Actually, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say, Mr. Chairman, that I think the maker of this committee, I would like to hear from her, because I agree with the statements that everybody's pretty much stated. But I think this is something that's very needed. But I guess Ms. Moon knows that there's a placement in case of that need for that amount of money, maybe less, as stated by the Commissioner Higgins. My concern is that, again, we're moving forward on something. If it could be done in a way where this continues to move forward, and then the financial part could be held based on the meeting that could take place, as Commissioner Hayman stated, that things are already taking place. So we don't want to double efforts. If we could just enhance. But Commissioner Sosa was very correct in saying this is Commissioner Higgins' proposal. This is her puppy that she's been working on for quite a while. And I want to make sure that that stays in play. So, Mr. Chairman, this is one of those that it's kind of difficult, because we want this to kind of move forward for what it's worth, but it's being an anchor is being dragged because of the cost. And we, even though if it's approved today, it doesn't make it for this budget cycle, because the next meeting, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's after budget. If I'm mistaken, Ms. Moon, could you please address that?
We had assumed when we put the budget together that this funding would be spent. We projected that it would be spent. It is possible for us to reserve the funding across the fiscal year should the board want to hold this in abeyance until a final decision is made.
Thank you. I'd like to hear from Commissioner Higgins. All this is good with her. So.
Yes.
Commissioner Higgins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that we were very aware, without the sunshine, of a lot of the things that are happening that Commissioner Hayman is involved in. And that was the reason in developing this item, and the whole strategy behind the task force is that we met with Judge Leifman and Chief Judge Soto, because we knew there's a lot going on over here, but we may need some solutions on the county side and in the more local effort. And part of it is because these solutions need to be technical of nature. You'll see that one of the main components of this task force is making sure that we have ITD representation, right? There are all kinds of changes that somehow, COVID has forced us to make. But part of making it easier to pay and part of making it easier for people to know when they need to show up in court, we have jurisdictions all around the country switching to text messaging, to online paying that's much more modern. And so Judge Leifman and Chief Judge Soto are very supportive of doing this in tandem with this other larger work, which quite frankly, they are very much working in part to get Tallahassee to move a little bit on some of these issues. So I just want to make it very clear that we were very well informed about the fact that this would have to work side by side. But the solutions that we're looking at here are going to require people to think creatively and smartly about how to apply new technology. And that was one of the reasons I was suggesting that we have an outside consultant who happens to be an expert in this and an expert in how technological solutions work for low-income populations. Let's remember, people that have the money to pay their fines and fees generally do. And so having that unique expertise of how technology works with low-income populations to facilitate their ability to pay was very interesting to me. If it is easier for this committee to pass this task force on without the consulting component, I think it will diminish the work, but I would like this task force to move forward. And I do think it is a wise use of some outside expertise. I think we will increase revenue to the clerk's office and to the county if we are able to implement some of these technological solutions, but it may require some outside ideas. And we can't expect people to work for free for the county to make that happen. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, and we're still on the deferral, and we haven't spoken about the deferral.
So, Mary Gain.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you.
On the deferral.
And it says it's on the deferral. Based on what Commissioner Higgins is saying, if we just, for right now, freeze that component and move the actual idea moving forward, I don't see as a problem, but I do know how to count. And right now it's not moving forward. But I would like to hear from my colleagues also on the deferral. As to what just been stated by Commissioner Higgins.
On the deferral only, please. Next one is Commissioner Sosa, followed by Commissioner Cava.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And on the deferral, my decision will be based on what Commissioner Higgins just said. If she wants to move the item for the formation of the task force without the funding for a consultant, because in my point of view, I would prefer to use the funding for community disparities to help those who haven't been able to pay for the license, rather than paying a consultant for this pocket. That way, we're going to help the community, making sure that people doesn't take advantage of that. So if we really want to help the community with something, if you want to move it without the funding at this point, and after the task force review everything, we come back, then I have no problems. If not, I won't be able, because we really want the people that funding, instead of going to a consultant pocket, then I will help those people who hasn't been able to pay their fees. In the meantime, we convince the state to do some changes regarding what they charge and everything. If the funding is part of the proposal, then I cannot support it.
And it would die to the attorney. To the attorney. Well, I can't see you there, but hopefully you're answering. Quick question: would this come as a committee substitute? Since Commissioner Higgins is not on this committee, she technically cannot make an amendment or a suggestion, and it cannot move forward until she drafts a new item per our rules. So, I knowing that she has consented and said, listen, I just want the idea to move forward and it would not be contrary to her wishes, could we have a committee substitute move forward creating the driver's license suspension task force, setting forth powers and responsibility, providing for a task force report in sunset, and leaving it there. Can we do that?
Commissioner Martinez,
Hey,
how are you? What you could do, Commissioner, even simpler than that, you could just amend the item that's before you. It is properly before this committee, and you could just amend the item to remove the direction to the county mayor to negotiate and execute the contract with the consultant and the direction to identify the funding source. And then the item can move ahead as amended.
okay. To Commissioner Higgins, who's not part here, but she's right there. Ma'am, as a courtesy from all of us, because we really truly believe in this, is that fine with you?
Yes, it's fine with me. Thank you.
Okay. So then,
I second as amended.
okay, there's a motion by Commissioner Sosa and seconded by Commissioner Diaz as amended. Are we all good now with this? Well, kind of, almost, sort of, but at least the item will move forward. I am surprised though that you and Commissioner Heyman didn't get along if you both knew that you were working on these things separately. I look forward to seeing what comes out of it, but I also look forward, since this consultant, Kurt Twang, LLC, has already done it for the state and other ones. Why can't we just request what they've done from the state? And, you know, like in a level of cooperation to whoever they gave these reports to, it's got to be public records. Why can't we, Ms. Rizzo, can't we request it from whoever they've already given that information to as if we have to, as a public record or something?
Commissioner Martinez, if the information was provided for a public entity, it could be requested as a public record. In addition, they did make a presentation to the Community Disparity Subcommittee, so a copy of that presentation could also be obtained and distributed to the Board of County Commissioners as well as to the ultimate task force members.
Yeah, because if we already have information, that 250's got to go down. You know, they already gave it to somebody else. That 250 has to go down, and then maybe that's something that some of us will find palatable. You do know, Commissioner Higgins, I think we have great people. I think ITD is great, and there's a lot of things, and we have to work with the clerk of the courts as well. I mean, that's probably the key to making sure these things happen. Not us, the state allowing us, but the clerk of the court is the perfect one. So I think Commissioner Cava still has her hand up, or
Yes, I do. Yes, I do,
ahead.
Mr. Chair. First of all, I made the original motion. I imagine the deferral is off the table. I made the original motion. I'd like to move it as amended, first of all.
No.
Okay.
I don't think anybody has a problem with taking that.
Okay, very good. Second, I would ask, and really it's a question, maybe to Jennifer and then to the group, to the committee, can we reserve this funding so that it's just a placeholder?
She said she did.
Okay, is that by motion? Would I need to make a motion to reserve the funding?
I would not think of taking it away from you. Go ahead and ask her.
Well, okay, well then that's what I'll do. I'll make a motion to reserve the funding pending all of the other discussions that we've had.
And I'll second.
Mr. Chair? Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, it's Sally.
Go ahead.
I'll remove my deferral. I support the as amended. I promise to work with Higgins on a sunshine before the next committee, looking at the funding, and deliver the information from the state of Kentucky that was a client of this company. So there's a bunch of information that we've already massaged at the council.
Perfect.
So I'll remove my deferral and support it as amended.
Perfect. It's been moved, it's been seconded as amended. Directions to the Deputy Mayor Moon to keep it on reserve, but we have to have a limit on how long we're going to keep that money there, because it could be used for something else. And if we find out that we get enough information from Kentucky or wherever it is that they did this and the presentation that they did, then maybe we can use this money, as Commissioner Sosa says, to help our residents on other things of need. So is there a time limit on this, Commissioner Cava, that you placed?
Well, how about if we get till the end of December to when we're looking at what is in the budget and to be reallocated?
Jennifer, is this part of the money that has to be kicked back?
What we can do, we would reserve it because there's pending board action. So that's enough for us to be able to reserve it. And what we can do is report back as part of the end of year budget item that either it is going to be used or it has been released and is therefore part of the carryover.
Okay. All right. Is that good enough, Commissioner Cava? That sounds like a plan?
Yes.
With
very
those
good. Thank you.
instructions? All right, then that item passes.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
One second. I don't know if Deputy Mayor Kemp is here, or if not, you know what? Deputy Mayor Moon? I had a question today from the corrections director, and he wasn't on here. I do want, from now on, every department that reports to this committee to be available in case anybody has a question. Because if we make the time to be here, they should make the time to be here. And if we have any questions, at least they should be available. Okay?
Yes, sir. We'll make sure.
Duly noted.
Thank you all. He has a good background too.
Motion to adjourn,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Chairman.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry. You know, the entire allocation for the subcommittee of $1 million has not been allocated. I know I made the motion for the 250,000. I'd like to bring up at this time that the 1 million be treated the same and offer that as a motion
Is that a proper motion in this particular committee?
for the balance of it.
They have the 750. Madam Attorney?
Commissioner Martinez, I would suggest, if Director Moon concurs, Deputy Mayor Moon concurs, that this be addressed as well at the second budget hearing.
Well, actually, because this has to do with the current year budget, fiscal year 2019-2020, and the budget hearing is limited to next year's budget, 2020-2021. As I indicated, we had already anticipated that this funding would be spent. So because we know there's pending board action, we will reserve it and then report in the end of year budget item, which comes to the board usually in January, February, in that time frame, whether or not the board action has taken place and whether the funding can be released.
Okay, but my question, Ms. Rizzo, is that a proper motion in this committee?
A motion is not necessary for that to happen.
Okay, then nothing happened.
Nothing happened here.
But it's a carryover, which Deputy Director Deputy Moon.
The jury will disregard everything that has been said for the last 5 minutes.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Sosa, your hands are up. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, I know that I tend to be very conservative with the funding. Some of us are gonna have to sit down for the next 2 years here. We have 2 colleagues that are running for mayor, and one of them will win, and we'll have to face the reality of the future. We have to be very careful about spending taxpayers' dollars at this time. I know it's a political moment, but we have to save as much as we can because we're gonna see the biggest problems in the budget next year. And we owe that to our community. So those people who are working very hard to have a home, to pay the rent, those who own a home and they are not being paid by others are suffering in our community. So bad moments are coming ahead of us when we hope that the pandemic goes away at some point. So we have to be very conservative and very careful about the way we spend taxpayers' dollars, because everyone who pays taxes in this county has to benefit at some point in an equal manner. And the manner that we can serve them the best is by providing any funding to the delivery of direct services to them, to everyone as a whole. So I just tell you that I am very concerned about taking this away, taking here, and then another one comes and say, now I'm gonna allocate 500,000 for this, 200,000 for. Let's be realistic and cautious because we're dealing with taxpayers' money, and we have to be very careful about that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Cava. You have your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to echo Vice Chairwoman Sosa's remarks. That is exactly why I wanted to be sure that they were in reserve. I think reserves are what's needed now to anticipate the difficult road ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Diaz.
Mr. Chairman, after all that, could we adjourn?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to confirm one thing. I know that we approved the balance of the agenda at the beginning.
Yes, sir.
Item 6A is the approval of the minutes. I wanted to make sure that that was also approved by this board.
I believe everything was, but if not, there's been a motion by Commissioner Diaz, seconded by Commissioner Sosa on the minutes. Everybody agrees to the minutes? Yes.
Yes.
Did. We're good. Okay, now